My name is Mia, I'm 22 years old, and I swear I'll never forget the way my heart sank that afternoon. You'd think your college graduation, the moment you walk across the stage after years of sleepless nights, late-night study sessions, and pulling yourself together when everything seemed impossible, would be one of those days your parents show up no matter what. That's what I believed, right up until the day arrived. I remember sitting in my dorm, putting on my black gown and adjusting the cap in the mirror. My roommate, Hannah, kept saying, "Your parents are gonna cry their eyes out when they see you." I just smiled because I didn't want to admit the truth. My parents had already told me they weren't coming. They brushed it off like it was nothing. Graduations are just useless ceremonies, Mia. It's not like the degree changes if we're there or not, my mom had said in that dismissive tone I'd grown up hearing. My dad chimed in, "Don't make it a big deal. Focus on the future." So I walked across that stage, smiling for the cameras, waving at the crowd, but deep down it felt hollow. My parents weren't there to clap, weren't there to hug me afterward, weren't there to take a single photo. Later that evening, when everyone else's families were out at dinner celebrating, I was scrolling through Instagram in my dorm. That's when I saw it, my mom's post. She was at some luxury spa resort, grinning with my brother Ethan, his wife, and their kids. Caption, "Much needed family time. Nothing better than treating ourselves." It felt like a punch in the stomach. They skipped my graduation for a spa weekend. For Ethan's family. Again. I didn't say anything right away. I've learned silence cuts deeper sometimes. But a few days later, the phone rang. It was my dad. He didn't ask how I was, didn't congratulate me, didn't even mention graduation. He just sighed and said, "The credit card bill is overdue. Don't forget to pay it." That was the moment something snapped inside me. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, clear as day, "Don't call me about useless things." The line went quiet. And for the first time in my life, I felt a flicker of control. After I hung up the phone, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. My heart was racing, but not from fear. It was from something else, something new. For years, I'd swallowed my feelings, told myself not to make waves, not to upset anyone. But that one sentence, "Don't call me about useless things," felt like the first brick I had laid in a wall I was finally going to build between me and them. See, my parents had always made it clear where I stood. My brother Ethan was the golden child, the one they poured everything into. They paid for his wedding, helped with the down payment on his house, bought clothes and toys for his kids. And me? I was the afterthought. When I needed help, it was always, "You'll figure it out, Mia. Be independent." But independence felt like just another word for being ignored. That night, I pulled out my laptop. I started scrolling through those graduation pictures people had tagged me in, the ones where I was smiling, shaking hands with professors, tossing my cap in the air. My friends looked so genuinely happy. Their families were holding bouquets, hugging them, making memories. And me? My parents weren't even in the audience. I felt a deep sting in my chest, but then another thought crept in. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for them to change. Maybe it was time to show them what happens when the daughter they dismissed decides she's done playing the forgotten role. Revenge wasn't going to be something childish, though. No screaming, no crying. No begging for them to notice me. No, I wanted something sharper, something that would leave a mark they couldn't ignore. The first step was simple, distance. If they thought I was just the responsible one who'd always pick up the slack, I was about to prove them wrong. I stopped answering their calls. I let the overdue bill sit there, untouched. When my dad texted again, I left him on read. My silence was my first move. But I knew I couldn't stop there. If I wanted to take this further, I'd have to be smarter. I'd have to hit them where it really hurt, right in the image they loved to show off to the world. And believe me, I already had an idea forming. The idea came to me while I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mom cared about two things more than anything else: appearances and control. She lived for her curated Instagram feed, the spa trips, the expensive dinners, the smiling family photos with Ethan's kids. To anyone scrolling through her page, she looked like the perfect mother with the perfect life. But I knew the cracks in the glass. I thought back to every time she told me not to make a big deal about things that mattered to me. Every birthday she forgot, every competition she skipped, every time she made me feel like background noise in my own family. My dad wasn't any better, he was just quieter about it, always stepping aside to let her decisions stand, always quick to remind me of bills but never quick to remind me that I mattered. That night, I opened my phone and started drafting a post. Not an angry rant, not a pity story, but something simple, sharp, and impossible to ignore. I typed. Graduated today. Walked across the stage alone. No parents, no flowers, no family photos. Just me. Funny how some people call it a useless ceremony, but to me, it felt like proof I made it despite being treated like the useless one. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the post button. Once I did this, there was no going back. But then I pictured my mom sipping champagne in her white robe at the spa, my dad checking the credit card statement, Ethan's kids being showered with gifts while I had to smile and clap from the sidelines. I hit post. Within hours, my phone blew up. Friends commented, professors liked it, even distant cousins sent me messages saying how proud they were. And then the private messages from family started trickling in. My aunt wrote, "Wait, your parents didn't go?" My cousin sent me a screenshot of the spa pictures with a question mark. The best part? My mom didn't comment. She just stayed silent. Which, for her, meant she was furious. And that's when I knew, this was only the beginning. It didn't take long for the fallout to start. By the next morning, my phone had 5 missed calls from my mom, 3 from my dad, and 1 from Ethan. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I sat at a little coffee shop off campus, sipping my latte and scrolling through the growing number of supportive comments under my post. People I hadn't spoken to in years were congratulating me, praising my strength, telling me how much they related. Every new notification felt like a tiny victory. Finally, around noon, I opened my messages. The first one was from my mom. "Mia, delete that post. You're making us look bad." The second one, a few minutes later. "I don't know why you're trying to embarrass us. That's childish." And then, my dad's message. "Call me back. We need to talk about this." I smiled to myself. For once, they were the ones scrambling, not me. When I didn't respond, Ethan finally tried. His text was dripping with that condescending big brother tone he'd mastered years ago. "Look, I get you're upset, but you don't need to air family stuff online. Mom and Dad have done a lot for us. Don't be ungrateful." Ungrateful. That word made my jaw tighten. Funny how nobody had thought about what I might have wanted that day, or what it felt like to sit through my graduation without anyone in the crowd cheering for me. I didn't reply to him either. That night, I got a notification. My mom had turned off comments on her spa photos. It made me laugh out loud. She wasn't mad because I was hurt, she was mad because people were finally seeing the truth behind the picture-perfect image she'd worked so hard to build. For years, they dismissed me, overlooked me, made me feel invisible. Now, for the first time, they were the ones being exposed. And the best part? I hadn't even really started yet. Because if they thought one social media post was bad, they had no idea what was coming next. After my mom shut off comments on her spa photos, I knew I had her rattled. But that wasn't enough for me. Social media was just the surface. I wanted something deeper, something they couldn't just delete their way out of. The truth was, my parents relied on me far more than they'd ever admit. I'd been the one to help manage their bills when they got behind, the one to proofread documents for my dad's small business, the one to babysit Ethan's kids whenever they needed a break. I had been their safety net, their free labor, their silent fixer. And now, I was done. The next step of my plan wasn't about blasting them online. It was about pulling back every ounce of support I'd ever given them. I started with the credit card bill my dad had called about. Normally, I'd log in, shuffle money from my savings, and make sure nothing got out of hand. But this time, I didn't touch it. I let it sit. A week later, another voicemail from him. Mia, it's your dad. I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to take care of that balance. Call me back. I didn't. Then came the texts from Ethan's wife, Claire. Hey, can you watch the kids Saturday? We're trying to plan a little date night. I stared at the message, remembering every single time I'd dropped my plans to be their built-in babysitter. Not once had they ever said thank you with more than a half smile. Not once had they offered to pay me for my time. I typed out one simple word. No. Her reply came fast. Seriously? We don't have anyone else. I didn't even bother answering. It was liberating, honestly. Every no felt like a little shard of freedom. And I wasn't being petty, this was me showing them what life looked like without the daughter they had taken for granted. But the real strike, the one I was carefully preparing, would take a little more time. I wasn't just going to withdraw. I was going to make sure they saw me rise, without them, and that everyone else saw it too. That was the kind of revenge that would last. The more I pulled back from my family, the lighter I felt. It was like I'd been carrying this invisible weight my whole life, and every time I said no, a little piece of it slid off my shoulders. But I knew revenge wasn't just about ignoring them, it was about showing them that the daughter they had dismissed as independent and fine on her own was more than capable of building a life without their half-hearted support. If anything, I wanted them to see that every success I achieved was because of me, in spite of them. So, I threw myself into my work. A professor had recommended me for a position at a local marketing firm, and after a few interviews, I landed the job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. For the first time, I had my own salary, my own apartment, and the freedom to make decisions without anyone else's approval. When I got the offer letter, I wanted to scream it from the rooftops, but I didn't tell my parents. Not yet. Instead, I celebrated with Hannah and a few friends over pizza and cheap champagne in my new living room. I posted a photo of us, smiling with boxes and takeout containers scattered around. The caption was short but sharp. First apartment. First real job. All on my own. I knew exactly who would see it. 2 days later, my mom texted, "Congratulations. You should have told us directly instead of making some vague post for everyone else to see." I smirked at the message. She didn't care that I had achieved something, she cared that she wasn't in control of the narrative. My dad, of course, sent a more practical text, "Proud of you. By the way, when do you plan to take care of that card balance?" I left him on read. The truth was, I wasn't planning to touch their bills ever again. I wasn't going to be their fixer, their babysitter, or their scapegoat. From here on out, every ounce of energy I had was going toward me. But my plan wasn't just about silence or distance anymore. No, I was laying the groundwork for something bigger. A moment that would prove, beyond any doubt, that they had underestimated me all along. And when that moment came, they'd have no choice but to watch. The first few months in my new apartment felt like breathing for the first time. No more guilt trips about why I didn't come over for dinner. No more frantic calls about bills or babysitting. No more feeling like the family's backup plan. It was just me, my little space, and the quiet satisfaction of finally being free. At work, things picked up faster than I expected. I discovered I had a knack for pitching ideas and building connections. My boss even asked me to lead a small project after only 6 weeks. When the campaign was a success, she pulled me aside and said, "Mia, you've got real potential here. Stick with this, and you'll climb fast." It was validation I had craved my entire life, but this time, it came from someone who actually saw me, not someone who only noticed when I was useful to them. Meanwhile, my family didn't seem to know what to do with my silence. My mom sent the occasional text, "We should get together soon. Ethan and the kids miss you." Or, "I hope you're not still upset about graduation." Still upset? That one almost made me laugh. No, I wasn't upset. I was thriving. Ethan, on the other hand, grew more pushy. One night, he called and actually left a voicemail, his voice dripping with annoyance. "Mia, you're acting selfish. Mom and Dad are worried. Stop ignoring them and grow up. Family's supposed to stick together." I replayed it twice, shaking my head. Funny how family suddenly mattered when they were the ones feeling my absence. The best part? People were starting to notice. My aunt messaged me privately saying, "I've never seen you so happy. I'm proud of you, Mia. Honestly, your parents should be too." That's when the idea started forming. What if I didn't just live my success quietly? What if I made sure the world saw it, loud and clear, so that no matter how much my parents tried to downplay me, everyone would know the truth? I didn't want to humiliate them directly. No, I wanted to outshine them so completely that their favoritism, their dismissiveness, their neglect, it would all look ridiculous in comparison. And I was getting closer to making that happen. The opportunity came out of nowhere. One afternoon, my boss called me into her office and said, "We're hosting a community networking event next month. I want you to represent the company." I blinked. "Me?" She smiled. "You've got the energy for it. People like you. You'll do great." It was just a small local event, business leaders, alumni, some press, but to me, it felt huge. A chance to stand in front of people who mattered, to introduce myself not as someone's forgotten daughter or backup babysitter, but as Mia, the young professional who was already making waves. I poured myself into the prep. I designed the booth, polished my presentation, and even bought a sleek navy blazer that made me feel like I could take on the world. The night of the event, I stood under those bright lights with a name badge that read Mia, Marketing Associate, and for the first time, I felt seen. People came up to ask me questions, shake my hand, compliment the campaign I had worked on. I laughed, I networked, I handed out business cards like they were candy. And of course, I made sure to capture it all. Photos of me speaking on stage, laughing with colleagues, standing proudly next to our company banner. I posted them with a caption that said, "Grateful for the chance to represent my company tonight. Hard work pays off. Here's to bigger things ahead." The likes and comments rolled in. Old classmates, professors, even strangers wrote, "So inspiring," and "You're killing it, Mia." But the real satisfaction came when I saw my mom view the post within minutes, and then nothing. No comment. No text. Just silence. That silence told me everything. She hated it. She hated that she couldn't take credit, that she wasn't part of the picture, that I was thriving without a single ounce of her help. Later that week, Ethan finally broke. He called me again, his tone sharp. "Mom's upset. She feels like you're trying to embarrass her. Can you tone it down with these posts?" I almost laughed into the phone. Tone it down? I'm just living my life, Ethan. If that embarrasses her, maybe she should ask herself why. And before he could respond, I hung up. That night, lying in bed, I realized something. My revenge wasn't about hurting them directly. It was about forcing them to watch me shine in all the places they said I'd never matter. And this was only the beginning. After the networking event, everything started to snowball. My boss was impressed with how I carried myself, and within a month, she assigned me to co-lead a major project for one of our biggest clients. It was stressful, sure, but I thrived under the pressure. For once in my life, the long nights and endless planning felt worth it because it was mine, not something I was doing to clean up after someone else. When the campaign launched, it exceeded every expectation. The client was thrilled, the company made a nice profit, and at the next staff meeting, my boss singled me out in front of the whole team. "This is Mia's win," she said. "She's someone to watch." I swear, I had to bite my tongue to keep from grinning like a kid. Of course, I shared the milestone online. Not bragging, just the truth. First major project in the books. Couldn't be prouder of the results. This is just the start. And the reaction? Overwhelming. Old classmates messaged me, people from my hometown reached out, even one of my professors shared my post on her feed with the caption, "So proud of my former student." But the best part? I got a message from a family friend, one my parents had always tried to impress. She wrote, "Mia, I had no idea you were doing so well. Your parents never mentioned it. They must be so proud." That's when it hit me. My parents weren't talking about my success at all. They weren't bragging about me the way they always did with Ethan. They weren't even acknowledging it. Why? Because it didn't fit the story they'd built, the one where Ethan was the star, and I was just the background character. But the more I succeeded, the more ridiculous their silence looked. People were starting to notice the gap. The questions were coming, not to me, but to them. And I loved every second of it. Still, I wasn't done. I wanted something bigger. Something that would force them to sit there and finally realize that no matter how hard they tried to dismiss me, I wasn't going to stay invisible. And the perfect opportunity was just around the corner. The opportunity came in the form of an email. "Congratulations. You've been nominated for the Rising Star Award at the Regional Marketing Association's annual gala." I read it 3 times before it sank in. Me. Nominated. At a formal event that would be covered by local media, attended by CEOs, executives, and community leaders. I could already picture it, my name announced, the spotlight on me, the kind of recognition my parents never thought I'd get. And the best part? They'd hear about it whether they wanted to or not. The weeks leading up to the gala were a blur of preparation. I bought a dress that made me feel powerful, sleek black, fitted just right, with silver heels that clicked on the floor like confidence itself. Hannah came with me to pick it out, and she grinned the whole time. "This is your moment, Mia. They won't be able to ignore you after this." She was right. The night of the gala, I walked into that ballroom like I belonged there. The chandeliers sparkled, waiters floated by with trays of champagne, and a photographer stopped me for a picture as soon as I walked in. When they called my name for the nomination, I stood on that stage, smiling as the room applauded. Cameras flashed. My boss beamed at me from the front row. I didn't win, but honestly, it didn't matter. Being up there, hearing my name announced in front of hundreds of people, it was more than I had ever gotten from my parents in my entire life. And, of course, I posted the photos. Me on stage. Me in that stunning dress. Me surrounded by colleagues who actually saw my worth. The comments poured in again, "Amazing. So proud of you. Next year you'll win it, no doubt." But the cherry on top. A message from my cousin later that night, "Your mom didn't mention this to anyone. I only saw it because of your post." Honestly, she looked uncomfortable when someone brought it up at dinner. Perfect. I didn't need to scream at them. I didn't need to beg for recognition. My success was doing all the work for me. And with every achievement, they were being backed further into a corner where their silence spoke louder than anything I could ever say. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't finished. I still wanted that final blow, the moment where they'd have to face me directly, not just the shadow of my accomplishments. And soon, that moment would come. It happened on a Sunday afternoon in late spring. I hadn't seen my parents in almost a year, not since before graduation, and I honestly hadn't planned on breaking that streak. But my aunt, the same one who had been quietly cheering me on through messages, invited me to a family barbecue. "It's just casual, Mia. Come by. You deserve to enjoy yourself." At first, I wanted to say no. The thought of walking into that backyard, with Ethan and his perfect little family and my parents pretending everything was fine, made my stomach twist. But then I thought about it differently. Maybe this was my chance, not to explode, not to beg, but to show them, face to face, exactly who I had become without them. So I went. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw them immediately. My mom in her sundress, drink in hand. My dad by the grill. Ethan tossing a football with his son. It was like stepping into a picture-perfect scene, except the air shifted when I walked up. My aunt greeted me first, hugging me tight and whispering, "I'm glad you came." Then came my mom. Her smile was thin, forced. "Mia. It's been a while." I smiled back, calm. "It has. I've been busy." Busy. The word hung between us. They knew what it meant. Throughout the afternoon, I noticed the sideways glances. My cousins asked about my job, my new apartment, the award nomination. I answered proudly, laughing, telling stories. And each time, I saw my parents shift uncomfortably, as if every compliment was a spotlight exposing their neglect. Finally, as the sun dipped low, my dad pulled me aside. His voice was low, almost pleading. "Mia, why are you doing this? Posting everything, telling everyone. You're making us look." "Like what?" I cut in. "Like parents who didn't show up. Like parents who don't know a thing about their daughter's life." "That's not me making you look bad, Dad. That's just the truth." He didn't have a response. For once, my dad, the man who always had something practical to say, was speechless. And when my mom tried to chime in later, saying, "You're being dramatic, Mia. You've always been so sensitive," I just looked her dead in the eye and said, "No. I've always been strong. You just never wanted to see it." The silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand, and I wasn't letting it go. The silence after my words was almost heavy. My mom stared at me like I'd spoken another language. My dad shifted uncomfortably, and Ethan, of course, swooped in like the self-appointed peacemaker. "Okay, let's calm down," he said, forcing a laugh. "Mia, you're making this sound worse than it is. Mom and Dad have always done their best. You just don't appreciate it." I turned to him slowly, my voice steady. "Their best? Really, Ethan? They skipped my graduation for a spa trip with you. They never helped me move into my apartment. They didn't even call when I got nominated for that award. But sure, let's pretend that's their best." Ethan opened his mouth, then shut it again. For once, he didn't have a comeback. My mom scoffed, clinging to her glass. "You're twisting things. We were busy. Life doesn't revolve around you, Mia." That stung, but I didn't flinch. I held her gaze and replied, "No, it never has. And that's the problem." The words landed like a slap. My aunt, who had been hovering nearby, put a hand on my shoulder, almost as if to steady me. But I didn't need it. I felt stronger than I ever had. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. "You know what? I used to wish for your approval. I used to think that if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, maybe one day you'd be proud of me. But now I see it. You'll never be proud, because that would mean admitting you were wrong about me. And you can't stand that." My dad finally spoke, his voice quiet. "Mia, that's not fair." "Fair?" I cut him off. Fair would have been showing up. Fair would have been cheering for me like you cheer for Ethan. Fair would have been not making me feel invisible in my own family. I could see it in their faces. They weren't used to me talking like this. I wasn't the quiet, overlooked daughter anymore. I wasn't the fixer, the babysitter, the one they could rely on without a thank you. I was standing in front of them, successful, unshaken, and unapologetic. And for the first time, they had no choice but to face the truth. The backyard felt frozen. Conversations that had been buzzing around us quieted, like everyone was waiting to see what I'd do next. My mom avoided my eyes, staring hard at the grass. My dad rubbed the back of his neck, and Ethan shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing I'd just let it drop. But I was done dropping things. I took a breath, then said clearly enough for the family nearby to hear, "I want you all to understand something. I didn't get here because of them. My job, my apartment, my award nomination, it's all mine. Every step I took alone. And the truth is, my parents chose not to be there. They didn't forget. They didn't miss it. They chose. Gasps rippled through a couple of my cousins who had probably only heard my parents' version of things. My aunt gave me a subtle nod, like she'd been waiting years for me to say it out loud. Ethan muttered, "Come on, Mia, don't make this a spectacle." I turned to him, my voice sharp but calm. "It's not a spectacle, Ethan. It's my life. And if they're embarrassed by it now, that's on them. Not me." My mom finally snapped, her voice tight. "You're trying to humiliate us. After everything we've done for you." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Everything you've done for me? Please. You've done the bare minimum, and you made sure I knew it wasn't enough. But look at me now. I didn't need your money. I didn't need your help. And I sure as hell don't need your approval." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents' faces were pale, almost shocked that I had dared to say it all out loud, in front of people they cared about impressing. That was my revenge. Not screaming, not crying, not begging. Just standing there, unshaken, with the truth laid bare for everyone to see. I grabbed my bag, turned to my aunt, and hugged her. "Thanks for inviting me. I needed this." Then I walked out of that backyard, my heels crunching on the gravel, my head held higher than it had ever been before. When I got back to my apartment that night, I collapsed on the couch, still in my dress from the barbecue. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, it was from release. For the first time in my life, I had said everything I'd been holding in for years. No filters, no second-guessing, no worrying about whether it would upset them. And it felt incredible. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Some from cousins who said, "I never knew, good for you for speaking up." One even admitted, "I always wondered why your parents never bragged about you the way they did about Ethan. Now I get it." My aunt sent a simple text, "Proud of you, Mia. Don't ever dim your light again." As for my parents? Silence. Not a call, not a text. Nothing. And honestly, that silence was its own kind of victory. Because it told me that I had finally said something they couldn't just brush off or twist into being my fault. In the days that followed, I noticed a change in myself. At work, I spoke up more confidently. I volunteered for projects I might have hesitated on before. I stopped second-guessing whether I was good enough, because I had already proven it, to myself, and to the people who mattered. I even started reconnecting with people outside of my family, the ones who had supported me quietly, or from a distance. Friends, mentors, even coworkers who genuinely celebrated my wins. My circle wasn't big, but it was real. For years, I thought revenge meant making them feel the pain I felt. But now I realized, it was bigger than that. Revenge was reclaiming myself, refusing to shrink down just to fit into the small space my parents had left for me. And the best part? I wasn't just surviving without them. I was thriving. Months passed after that barbecue, and my parents never reached out. At first, I half expected them to, an angry phone call, a guilt trip message, something. But the silence stretched on. And instead of feeling abandoned, I felt free. My life moved forward. At work, I earned a promotion, marketing specialist now, with my own team to lead. I moved into a bigger apartment, one with sunlight pouring in through wide windows and enough space for the life I was building. On weekends, I traveled with friends, tried new restaurants, and even started dating someone who actually appreciated me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. And the whole time, I shared my milestones proudly. Not to rub it in, not to seek approval, but because I wanted to celebrate myself. Something I had never been allowed to do at home. Word trickled back to me through relatives. My parents hated it. They hated that everyone else in the family knew about my successes before they did. They hated that my name came up in conversations where people asked, "Why don't you talk about Mia more? She's doing amazing things." That was my revenge. Not screaming, not begging, not breaking down in tears. My revenge was becoming everything they said I couldn't be, everything they refused to see in me, and making sure the world saw it instead. One night, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, I thought about graduation day. That empty seat where they should have been. The ache in my chest as I scrolled past their spa pictures. The moment I decided I was done. If I could go back and talk to that version of me, I'd tell her this: they'll regret underestimating you. You don't need them to show up. You'll show yourself. And I did. In the end, my happy ending wasn't about getting my parents to apologize, or to finally clap for me. My happy ending was realizing I didn't need them to. Because I wasn't invisible anymore. I was unstoppable.